All right, it is Sunday. It is 7 p.m. So you know what that is. It is time for the Man Event Live show. Listen, we're not exactly Cal Ripken yet, but this is our 52nd show. So we've kept it going for right at a year. I am B Love. We got the Chief, Pooh Bear. Somewhere in cyberspace is TSG. I'm sure he'll be joining us soon. So join us as we talk about NFL free agency, the NCAA tournament, and so much more. Grab a friend, pull up a chair, come hang out with us. This is the Man Event. Yo, we look like, are we on Barney or something?
It's Purple Day, man.
In the background.
It's National Purple Day.
Purple bubbles.
I did not get
not coordinated, by the way. Not coordinated.
Well,
the gentleman.
Truth be told, I do coordinate my background lighting with the theme of the brand color. Since I have control, I can change that. So I do. So there it's red. I do change it depending on what I choose for my background theme.
This guy thinks he's fancy.
Well, that's me. Sorry.
All right. So listen, gents, I figure we started off talking some NFL free agency. NFL free agency started this past week. I believe it was on Wednesday was the first day. And
like gangbusters right out.
It was like popcorn, pop, 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 pop. Well, so let's start first. The Buccaneers took care of some business that we didn't know they'd actually be able to pull off or not. And that was the signing on a 4-year deal with Shaq Barrett. I know you guys probably have some feelings on this because I think we were kind of split. Some of us felt like Shaq Barrett definitely needed to be a part of this team, and some of us felt like we couldn't afford him. So where you guys falling right now?
Well, I'm happy they re-signed him, first of all. I mean, he was a valuable member, especially down the stretch in the playoffs for the Buccaneers. Had a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks. If as long as what they're doing right now, it appears that they're just keeping the team together from last year. So, which I think is great. I think they do need some areas to improve upon. You're never going to be able to, have those kinds of chances and things fall in place like they did for you again. That's just hard. You're silly if you think that way. But, as long as you can fit his contract within your salary cap and able to keep these other players, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about people that were split and maybe not, huge Shaq Barrett fans, I feel like you might have been talking about me. So,
yes.
Yeah, you said you could go.
But okay, so just to be clear, it's not that I'm anti Shaq Barrett. I just felt that Godwin was a better investment than Barrett. Now, I am happy as can be to see Shaq Barrett coming back. I'm excited to see the Gronk coming back, to see Godwin. Of course, that was my guy, to see him coming back. Suck up. I mean, for crying out loud, we've been on the kicking carousel for a while now. I'm glad to see him coming back too.
I think, Chief, that's as big of a signing as any.
That's
because of the problems, because of the problems and the challenges that we've had in the kicking game. And if you go back to the season before the Super Bowl season, had we had good kicking, that team might make the playoffs despite Jameis Winston's play.
4 wins. 4 wins because we didn't get because of kicking. Here's my concern, though. Okay, huge fan of these guys. I think they're going to be very successful again next year. My real concern is going to be in the years immediately following that, because in football, you have to do 2 things. Number 1, you got to keep talent. Number 2, you got to keep young. Right now, we're not getting young. We're getting old. So, by the time, Barrett's contract's up.
With that a little bit.
Are you kidding me? Tom Brady's going to be 45.
Man. He's the only old guy. Name another old guy.
Shaq Barrett himself is
JPP.
28. There you go. JPP's old, but he's coming out of contract, though. So look who made the show. he's out on location. It looks like
He's
not
poolside,
wearing-
man.
I
He's
am
not wearing
poolside,
purple.
brothers.
Dude, I don't know. Every time TSG takes more vacation than Chief.
Hey,
Oh, wow.
hey.
Yeah.
Wow.
I said it. I said it.
Hey, who else is bringing palm trees to the show?
Not me, brother. Those are nice.
Hey, another signing though from the Bucs this week, which was something we had talked about, was Nunez Rocha. Sorry, and he's a guy that
affectionately known as Nachos.
Nachos, exactly. Yes, thank you. He's another guy that I said we can let him go, but he's coming back. Let me see. They signed him. They undisclosed, haven't told us what the terms are yet, but he's coming back. He knows the system. Okay, he's younger than McClendon, that's for sure. So, another big guy up the middle. I'm still haven't heard anything about Sue coming back, and I would like to see him too.
Yep. So, Chief, we're going to come back to you here in a couple of minutes because I want to talk about, we've had some conversation amongst us offline about what we think the Bucs should do in the draft, especially with the money that they've spent so far in re-signing. We haven't even signed any free agents. We've just been re-signing guys from the team. So we'll come back to you in a second, but there was also a number of big signings this week, and I want to get y'all's feelings on how you think, are they good? Are they bad? What does it do for those teams? So I got to start. With a former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback in Jameis Winston. Drew Brees retires. Jameis, they signed to a 1-year, $10 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are laughing. What's going on?
Well, there's this mentality of quarterback secession in the NFL, right? So when Joe Montana retires, you need to replace him with a Steve Young. When Steve Young retires, you need to replace him with a Jeff Garcia. That's kind of the mentality of things. And when you don't do that, when you don't replace John Elway with Peyton Manning, you end up with Scott Mitchell after Dan Marino, right? And there's this fall off. And
Who?
Exactly. Drew Brees is a legend, right? I mean, arguably one of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, not just in the past, couple 20 years, couple decades, all time. And your plan for secession is Jameis Winston, who now I've been a big Jameis critic because of his failures and shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's aside from his off the field issues, but it's his decision making. And it just seems to me there were better options out there for quarterbacks with talent that made better decisions than a Jameis Winston. You've seen he's been in the league 6 years now, 7 years. You've seen the decisions as a starter 5 years in Tampa Bay were terrible. What makes you think you're going to improve upon that?
They weren't all terrible. Had he not turned the ball over, his time in Tampa Bay was not terrible.
No,
the guy is an amazing passer.
But he just
doesn't always pass it to the right team.
Correct. Those are the decisions I'm talking about. The decision-making ability on the field, his football acuity. Okay, to throw out a nice big word for you guys.
Wow. Dictionary word of the day, acuity.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Use it in a sentence.
So you've got the Tom Brady's of the world, whose football acuity, and Peyton Manning, whose football acuity is 100. Right? They're the smartest people on the field when they play the game.
Yes. 100%. Yep.
You go down to Jameis, who can't, for whatever reason, read what the outside linebacker is about to do, what position the free safety is going to be in when he's over the top. That's where Jameis fails. Let's see.
So that's what Sean Payton said. That's what Sean Payton said when Jameis went there. Last year he said Jameis Winston is about to get an MBA on how to play quarterback.
Well, let's hope so.
If he did it, if he learned from Sean Payton and Drew Brees, guys, I'm going to tell you, we could be in trouble when we face the Saints because he has all the tools to be an elite NFL quarterback, and he's got a ton of experience, and he's young. He came out at 21 years old. This guy is still a young man.
Yeah.
Great arm, good size, can be mobile, not afraid to throw it.
So we're going to talk about some other free agent quarterback signings this week that I think will be relative to this one. But my argument on the signing of Jameis there is he's familiar with Sean Payton and the system. They could have brought in a number of quarterbacks, which I'll share with you guys here in a minute, that signed a similar deal that Jameis did, but none of them would be familiar with the Saints system. So
he only had
is
1
that
year.
the advantage?
He had 1 year, and he only played a few downs, but we saw him in 1 down specifically in the playoffs where he threw a touchdown. Quite embarrassing for the Buccaneers.
Hey, scoreboard, baby. Scoreboard.
Right. But,
so who do you feel they could have brought in? Who are your other names that you would have seen them go to?
You asking me?
Yeah.
You
said
I don't have a name specifically out there. I'm just making the argument that this could have been the reasoning is he's already familiar with the system. He's already
I got you.
Sean Payton is already familiar with them. But while we're talking quarterbacks, let me share with you a couple of them. So Jameis gets $10 million. How about after an aggressive pursuit of Russell Wilson, the Bears end up signing Andy Dalton to also a 1-year, $10 million deal? That says it all.
Look, I don't believe anybody thought that Russell Wilson was going to leave Seattle. He's got a great relationship there. He wasn't going to leave. This is about him, telling the ownership, hey, I'm not yours forever. You're going to have to pay me at some point, and that's all he was doing. He was just making whatever his statement was. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'm just saying, he's just letting them know, hey, this is just him validating himself or something like that,
his big hang up was he was asking for help. He wanted an offensive line to help block. He wanted a better running game.
He needed an offensive line. He's not wrong.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. But apparently they weren't focused on that. They were going to be focused on rebuilding the defense and free agency in the draft because their defense was absolutely horrid this past year. But the Seahawks are just a team that fell into the classic same problem the Saints are going to have, since we're talking about the Saints a little bit too, is the salary cap problems. They don't have enough room to secure the defensive players they had when they were in their Super Bowl runs a few years ago. And here they are now, cash strapped, and I'm not sure where their picks are. I think they traded some picks away as well in order to secure some of those players. They're essentially rebuilding. So I think Russell saw that and said, "Hey, I'm out. Get me out of here. Get me to a place that it's going to possibly achieve."
Yeah, I don't know. I shake my head at the Bears with this signing event. By the way, Mitchell Trubisky signed somewhere else this week for about $2.5 million. If you remember, they drafted him after signing Mike Glennon to a pretty big contract. By the way, Mike Glennon's still in the NFL. He got a job this week with the Giants. But my thing is, Andy Dalton isn't going to take you to the promised land. The guy's at the end of his career. So instead of spending $10 million on Andy Dalton, why don't you just re-sign your guy to $2.5 million and go get somebody else in the draft? Like they just, in my opinion, they just wasted $7.5 million. Andy Dalton doesn't make that team any better than Mitchell Trubisky did.
I agree with that. I don't think Dalton's going to take anybody anywhere. He never did it with the Bengals. So I mean,
yeah. And then the other big signing this week of a quarterback to a similar contract that Jameis got, our boy Fitzmagic signs with the Washington football team. Now, Pooh Bear was in the nation's capital during this signing. How do the Washingtonians feel about it?
Bro, those guys are psyched. At least, let me put it this way. At least this one sportscaster I watched on one of the station I was watching at the time, he was pumped. I mean, you would have thought that they just signed Tom Brady. Essentially, the same feeling we had 1 year ago today. By the way, it was the day that the Buccaneers signed Tom Brady. His just elation. He was so excited about Fitzpatrick. I'm like, I remember watching that kid Heineken or Hinsky or whatever the kid's name
Heinlich. I don't know his real name. I'm just throwing out inches.
I think it was Heineke, Travis Heineke. Anyway, the kid that played their playoff game against the Buccaneers, he was really good. He showed a lot of promise. I don't know why you wouldn't at least try to give him a chance. But maybe that's what kind of Fitzpatrick does. He's saying he's got terrible signal. And that's kind of what Fitzpatrick does. He comes into town, kind of helps bring the younger guy along before they can make their big appearance, and he kind of fades out and goes plays for, his 32nd NFL team.
His 32nd.
How about this? In other teams in the NFL, the Patriots have signed 19 free agents. I mean, that's almost an offense and a defense. And they have spent. Listen, they have drafted. They have signed every position, including they have. Are you ready for this? Have y'all realized they have $87 million tied up in tight ends? In two tight ends. Signed.
Well, the rumor was they went for Gronkowski the day before he signed with the Buccaneers.
Well,
yeah, I mean, he's never going back there. He's sticking with.
He's sticking with Brady. Absolutely,
he'll never play without Brady.
But they signed these guys for $50 million and $37 million apiece. That's how it broke down.
Wow,
that is absolutely getting paid right there. You're putting all your eggs in that, all your touchdowns in that basket.
For two tight ends not named Kelsey, Gronkowski,
or Hernandez and Gronk. I don't think they spent that much on those two guys, and they were both Pro Bowlers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm bringing up Travis Kelsey. To me, him and George Kittle are probably the two best in the league.
Absolutely, yes.
Gronkowski's right there with him, in my opinion. So it's just odd that they went at. I mean, I guess they need tight end help. I think they need everything help. They were kind of lacking in all departments last year, and they re-signed Cam. Hey, go Patriots, man!
Man,
love you, Mass Halls.
Yeah, I mean, interesting moves. Listen, you talk about another team that made a lot of moves this week was the Houston Texans. Now,
yes, they did.
We have made fun of them on this show regularly recently because they are legit a dumpster fire happening. Okay. They made 12 free agent moves this week, some through trades, some through signings. And they picked up two quarterbacks. One you'll know the name of, but maybe both. Ryan Finley, and they signed Tyrod Taylor. Okay. Now remember, they have a quarterback who right now wants out of town. J.J. Watt split town to go to the Cardinals. I don't even know if that was a lateral move for him, right? But now Deshaun's in trouble.
Yeah. Yep. He may not play anywhere next year.
That possibly could be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if he's legit in trouble, if the accusations against him are true, yes, he faces some serious suspension. Well, and possibly some jail time.
Probably legal action.
Yeah.
So do the Texans even have a starting quarterback? I mean, which one of those two is the starter? I have no idea.
The only one I know of would be Tyrod Taylor. Yeah.
Tyrod, who was having a pretty good season. Well, he had a good game, I think it was, before the rise of the Chargers' new Herbert. Justin Herbert was their rookie. He kind of came in after Tyrod was hurt. I think he even got an ejection that punctured his lung. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah,
that was with the Chargers.
He had a collapsed lung, right before the game started. Yeah,
right. So he just had a string of bad luck. I think he's a viable option. Why not give him a shot? He really hasn't done much in the past 2 or 3 seasons because he hasn't been on the field. No fault of his own. It's not like he was outplayed. He was. I think he was. Not Johnny Manziel. Kid in Cleveland.
Johnny Manziel?
No.
Now current
on all the commercials.
Yeah.
Breaker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name just now.
I could only remember it. Once Chief said the commercials, I knew we were talking about.
Right. Right. So Tyrod was sat down to let Baker play in Cleveland. I think the same thing kind of happened to him again in LA, not San Diego anymore. In LA for the Chargers. So I just kind of a string of bad luck. I think he's still a good quarterback. I think same thing happened to him in Buffalo when they drafted Josh Allen. So I mean, he's just being pushed down the line. It's not really a performance issue. He hasn't shown.
But remember, he's one of those quarterbacks, and guys, we talked about this here this past week. But he's one of those quarterbacks that is not a pocket passer. He's a scrambly bambly, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I think we're starting to see that quarterback just doesn't last in the NFL. And although it looks fun and it's kind of attractive, it's not really an NFL style quarterback. And for a long time, I think a lot of people thought that the NFL was moving to that route. And I think you look at a guy, let's use Cam Newton. We just brought him up. His inability now to scramble because of diminishing skills, like all of us have diminishing skills. Yeah. Okay. Well, can you run?
Yes.
He can't run. We saw that in the boot camp video. He blew a heavy right there on camera, man.
I can run water. I can run an election. I can run pipe. I can run cable.
Listen,
oh my gosh.
I've got some really great video of the chief trying to get up and down my roof. So I know he has diminishing skills.
Oh, man, you got that right. Let's not talk about me. I got one though. Okay, because this is not a big name, but I think it has a big impact, especially on the Buccaneers.
All right.
Okay, and it's losing. We lost Joe Hague. Joe Hague, a lot of people don't know who he is. He's an offensive lineman. He can play almost any position on the line. Probably, I don't know if he plays center, but he can certainly play tackle and guard. And during the Super Bowl, he's the big guy that dropped the catch in the end zone from Tom Brady.
Okay,
So, but here's my point to losing him. Okay, he's 6'6". He's right at 300 pounds. So he's physically, he's got the position covered. He's obviously can move a little bit because, he went out in the pass route. But what happened to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl is they lost both of their offensive tackles and they had to, subs had to come in. Nobody goes through a season without injuries. And if you wind up with significant injuries, deep in the playoffs, it's going to cost you just like it cost the Chiefs. So I'm concerned that if we don't draft well, because I don't see us doing anything in free agency to pick up another guy, like him, that, we could wind up in that position. We lose, one of our offensive linemen, and all of a sudden you can't afford to take. You're obviously going to lose something in talent and skill, but you can't afford to take a nosedive.
Yeah, TSG says Chief can still make a Taco Bell run.
Yes,
over Taco Bell run.
I bet he can. Listen, if Chef Hobby's with us, no cheese. Okay,
that's right.
Cheese.
So no cheese. So Cliff, I would like to get your thoughts on this for a second. So I hear you. Losing Joe Hague is a big deal. We saw the Seahawks make a move this week. I'm sorry, not the Seahawks. We saw the Chiefs make a move this week to get an offensive lineman, paid him a big 4 or 5 year deal. Obviously, if you look back at that Super Bowl tape, that position probably cost them that Super Bowl win.
Oh, I agree.
Right? We Mahomes ran all day.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we know how important that position is. And then there's rumors this week that that the Seahawks are passionately pursuing Fournette and AB. Now, I think we have all resigned to the fact that we maybe don't get those guys back. I think we all kind of feel maybe we don't need those guys back. There's a mixed bag of feelings amongst the four of us on that. But if that were to happen, by the way, I think that makes Seattle a pretty great team. With
it
Russell
definitely
Wilson.
Makes them better. But again, behind that offensive line, the only running back that's going to have success back there would have been Barry Sanders.
That's
I mean,
true.
that offensive line, that offensive line is terrible. Without a good offensive, that's why an offensive line is so important. And TSG is chiming in saying that's where the Buccaneers should do is draft an offensive lineman, which is probably all they're going to wind up with in the 31st pick, maybe an interior defensive lineman.
Okay.
But point being, that is the stalwart which starts your entire play action. If you can't run the ball with good offensive blocking, then your quarterback is going to be scrambling consistently. You're not going to have enough time to look for the deep pass. You're not going to have enough time to find the open receiver. You're going to be hurried and rushed. It's not good. So you need an offensive line that's going to protect you. With that, you can build off of all the other facets of the game. With a good offensive line, you can have a good running game. With the good offensive line, you can have an effective passing game. And with that comes play action and run pass option and all the things you want to do as a successful team.
Yep. So, Chief, this is what I want to hear. You have an interesting thought on the Bucs draft season this year. And I'd love for you to share what you think the strategy should be and why.
So we should have covered this in the green room, but so I feel you're asking me the question about us trading our picks away.
Yes.
Is that yeah, okay. So a couple of things are going on. Number one, I mean, we're running out of cash in a hurry, and we have re-signed people to big contracts and first-round picks. They cost a lot of money. I said earlier we needed to get young, and I really think the way to do that, to do all those things, save cash, get young, maybe not this year, but next year, is to trade away some draft picks. We can trade away our first-round pick for depending on who is on the board at the time, we may be able to give away or trade away our first-round draft pick for next year's first-round draft pick and a second-round pick, or maybe we can work some second and third rounder. I mean, when you're talking about second and third round, people think that like a third rounder isn't a very good pick. You haven't picked 100 players yet, out of all, college football. So, I mean, there's real talent in the third round. So, I mean, it's not, you're not giving away a first round pick for maybe a second and a third. You're potentially getting, two really, good guys that could have been guys in the first round. Just kind of depends upon, who they're up against that particular year, if they're having that position. My football acuity, though, tells me, there it is.
Wow, there it is. Boom.
That we need to, I still say we need to look at a quarterback. And I think there's going to be, the quarterback of the future for Tampa Bay, is going to still be there in the third or fourth round. I think he's going to be there. He doesn't have to come from one of these, powerhouse, schools that their names coming out of college. There's plenty of, 6'4" guys with good arms that are really smart. I think, in all honesty, let's put more emphasis on the Wonderlic and less emphasis on, what their draft is and arm strength and stuff like that. Because as we see with Jameis, his mistakes are not physical. They're all mental. And Tom Brady is just the opposite. Tom Brady, I mean, no one's ever been wowed by his ability to scramble or his arm strength, but he just doesn't make mistakes. And that's what's important.
Listen, Chief, you make a strong point there with let's look more at the Wonderlic than the physical skills. Listen, I will tell you, and I would imagine that the two of you will join me in saying this, in the professional world, that matters almost more than skill set.
Oh, absolutely. Preparation is everything. And
right. You can have all of these physical skills and abilities, but if your head game isn't strong, there it is. So, interesting. I thought I wanted you to share that because I just thought it was interesting that I agree with you. A quarterback of the future is we need a quarterback of the future. That's probably a strong, but to think about, we could trade some picks for some future picks. And here's the reality. Those future picks for us could be great picks 2 or 3 years down the road.
Absolutely.
What if trading for that, a first round pick, gets us a 6, 7, or 8 pick 2 to 3 years from now, right? And now we're just constantly building that team,
Yeah.
Well, that was one thing. I think Rich McKay 2 GMs ago was really good with. He would bundle up several picks from other teams. He'd grab a 6th round pick from this team, 5th round pick from this team. He'd bundle those along with the Buccaneers 4th round pick and turn it into a 3rd round pick in this season, and make a great selection with it. It was a fantastic negotiator in that sense. So I think I think you're right in a perfect world, being able to offload your picks and garner more picks, especially for down the road, is a great thing to do. But anytime you make a trade like that, it takes another partner. And you got to find another team that's willing to sacrifice their 1st round pick or their 2nd round pick in a later coming year in order to do that. So it's relatively difficult to do. But when you're not picking in the top half of the 1st round, the salary you're going to be paying the 31st pick overall pick in the 1st round of the Buccaneers is not nearly as dangerous to your salary cap as if you had a top 10 pick.
Sure. I just think, Pooh Bear, to your point on that, it's a very similar strategy that the Rays have, right? It's, hey, let's trade the top tier guy at his maximum trade level, and we're going to bring in guys that nobody's ever heard of that will make an impact on this ball club 2 to 3 years down the road, right?
Right.
And every time we lose one, we all get upset as fans, right? But you look back at some of the trades that team has made, they almost always pay.
The Rays always come out on top with those. You'd be hard pressed. I think I've said this on the show before. You'd be hard pressed to find me a Rays cast off, a player they traded away or let go in free agency that had massive success somewhere else, and you felt, man, we should have kept that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe a David Price, but even then, the cost that they let him go, the value
we lost him in free agency.
Right. So the cost it would have taken to pay him, you would have felt we did not get what we got in return had his numbers been the same, because I can guarantee you the Red Sox feel that way. And I'm pretty sure the Dodgers felt that way, especially last year when he didn't even play when he opted out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Pooh Bear, we're going to give you an opportunity next week to talk a little bit about the upcoming baseball season. We're about 11 days away from the games counting. And I always love playing this with Pooh Bear. It's what's the starting lineup on opening day look like, including giving us the rotation. So hopefully we don't know what that looks like when we come to broadcast next Sunday. I'm sure we won't know the starting lineup for opening day, but we might know what the rotation is going to look like. But here's the thing. Next Sunday is the 1-year anniversary of the main event. It is the 1-year anniversary of the day that this channel was created. And so I'm sure we're going to have some fun things. But I'm looking forward to Pooh Bear giving us his insights on that. Something that I feel we always talk about every year, typically right around spring training.
And we're going to need some bold predictions, right? So start mentally preparing yourself.
All right, I'm ready.
I want to hear one bold prediction for the Rays and one bold prediction MLB wide, right? So for any team.
I'm writing this down. Bold predictions.
And it's got to be bold, right? Something that there's no way that could happen.
No, that's just throwing something in the air and hoping it sticks.
Yeah, it's got to be something.
You got to be able to make an argument behind why you think that's a bold prediction.
Of course, but I mean, it needs to be, like something like Tyler Glasnow will win the Cy Young Award, right?
Oh, that would stink.
No, it would stink?
That would stink.
That Tyler Glasnow won the Cy Young?
I'm sorry. I was thinking Charlie Morton.
No. Yes, that would stink.
That would stink.
Yeah, if Glasnow won the Cy Young, I think we'd all be pretty happy. But yeah, that's a bold prediction. He hasn't been a Cy Young contender previously, right? So that's pretty bold to come out and say that. He doesn't typically lead in the win category like a Cy Young winner does. He gets the strikeouts, but anyway.
I can't wait to hear Chiefs. They're definitely going to be interesting. So let's switch off a little bit here from talking sports and some interesting stories in the news this week. So in Miami, it's spring break here in Florida. Well, it's spring break all across the country, right?
It's starting.
Like our kids just came off of spring break, but colleges and what have you are spring breaking. So Miami Beach has a curfew for the next 72 hours, and there's talks about wanting it to stay through April. That curfew is 8 p.m.
8 p.m. It's barely dark. I don't even, it's 8 o'clock now, and it's not.
That's in 25 minutes, by the way, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
At 8 p.m., I haven't even had dinner yet, and we're talking about being on curfew.
Well, have you seen some of the video of the stuff that's going on down there?
Listen, here's the thing. It's so packed and it's so full. I don't know how the authorities could keep anyone safe. If something crazy happened, I understand the why. I think it's crazy. We're talking about Miami Beach.
Right. It's terrible. But there's what is with the throwing of the money? That's what's got me. Right? Because typically when you think of spring breakers, people that are enjoying spring break, college kids, right? Maybe some that are a little past their prime that are trying to relive their college days. But for the most part, these are young adults who don't necessarily have a lot of money most of the time. And yet I'm seeing video of people hanging out of sunroofs, throwing money out into the street, into crowds, people riding in convertibles, shooting with these money guns and stuff. Maybe these are rappers. I don't know. I don't know where this money's coming from. Maybe they're stimulus checks. They got their Biden.
They got their
checks.
stimmies. They got their stimmies.
They're Biden bucks.
They're Biden bucks blowing their $1,400. I don't know, but I just don't understand the money thing. I get the partying and all that. That's every year you're going to get that, but the money throwing, this is like a new thing. I'm like, where was this when I was in spring break?
So look, I'm getting tired of the cry wolf scenario from these guys. Okay, so they said that the super spreader event was going to be the Super Bowl. Okay, and it wasn't. It wasn't a Super Bowl. We went. We saw. People were able to socially distance. Okay, it just didn't happen. Okay, every time they say there's going to be a super spreader event since January, it has not happened. The numbers when you look at the dashboard, like Florida has a dashboard for the COVID numbers. I was looking at it before we got on. They're all going down. Okay, and then this guy shows up and he's like, "Hey, I know you guys had a bad year last year, and I know you're starting to make a little cash, and I'm going to shut you down." If I was the Chamber of Commerce, I would be rallying to get this mayor out of office. I would say, look, we've got to, and he's even, look, they're showing videos of this place, right? And during the day, it is not packed. I mean, it's really not. People are doing what they do. You're going to the beach, which is tell me a better social, a safer place that you can go than the beach,
Sure.
And then, they exaggerate. I'm so over the exaggeration of it too. They're like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We got to keep, we're not in the middle of a pandemic. We're at the end of a pandemic. This thing is winding down. We're getting vaccinations are moving, we're vaccinating. I forget the number of people a week, but it's a lot just in the state alone. And Miami's getting their fair share of vaccinations. So, let the businesses open, okay. If you're going to create a curfew, if that's what you're really afraid of is the people partying, you can't do it at 8. That's just insulting, because right. Like you said, people want to go out to dinner and they can't even go out to dinner. They're closing the bridges that lead to Miami Beach. It's an island. Okay. If people aren't aware, it's an island. You got to take the bridges over. The bridges are closing at 9:00. So I think they will allow residents to go, but I don't know if you're staying in a hotel. I don't know, what the rule on that is, how you're going to have to, maybe you have to prove it or something, but I guarantee you there are going to be some people that are going to try to cross that bridge and they're going to tell them no, and they've got a legit reason to be there.
Yeah, it's getting bad down there.
It's crazy. We have an office on Miami Beach, and right on I think it's Miracle Mile.
This is not the Man Event office. This is B-Love's day job office.
This is my day job. So we have an office. If the Man Event had an office in Miami Beach, we'd probably be having fun. So we have an office right there. I believe it's the Miracle Mile. But one of the things I love about going to that office is going to lunch. And on Beach Drive right there, there's tons of really cool restaurants, and you can sit. If the weather's nice, you can sit right out there. They're like literally across the street from the beach. But one of the places I've gone to a number of times is the Hollander, and it's a restaurant right there. Chief's nodding his head like you're familiar with it. But I read a report that they chose to, even without the curfew, they chose to close their restaurant because of fears for their employees' safety. But it's just crazy to me that you're right. Like that would be a high tourist area. There's millions of dollars being lost there, with a curfew, and those businesses are probably already suffering. But for those spring breakers, like where else are they going to go?
Well, if they're going to go to Florida, there's a ton of places for them to go in Florida.
I know, but I just think there's so many places that aren't open. Pooh Bear just came back from a family vacation in our nation's capital. Nothing open.
He had the subway to himself with the train, man. That was
essentially, yeah.
That was crazy.
I'm not a frequent visitor to DC to see what the metro normally looks like, but I can't imagine it was anything like what I saw.
But it was standing. When I was there a few years ago, it was standing room only.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing about that, by the way. This is just a side note, because I try to bring my kids up, especially my son. As a young man, he had a seat. And there was an older woman, and she did not have a seat. And I said, hey, buddy, won't you offer her a seat? So he did, and she took it. She was very grateful for it. Now, there were I was standing up already, but there were other, young men. I'm talking, 25 years old and, and up, and they were not going to give up their seats. They just sat there and they put their nose down in the paper or the books or something like that, and they just pretended like these people didn't exist. Like, I got mine.
So
I'm sorry for your luck.
The 5 of us taking up 5 double seats and my kids laying down taking naps and stuff, that's not going to normally happen on a
no
good night, man.
No.
I've got pictures of every single one of them laying down.
Wow.
No. So we have an office in DC as well, so that's another area that I've frequented in the past. I've never seen it not packed. The metro, just the whole DC area, it's normally crawling with people.
Yeah.
Well,
day and night, by the way.
It was a nice place to go for spring break. It wasn't too cold. It didn't rain until our last day there. So, I'd encourage all you young college age people that are looking to take someplace maybe next year, check out DC.
Go to DC, go learn some history, learn a little bit about our country
that's right. Go see the monuments and
in the nation's capital. It's a beautiful place. I love going there. But it's a beautiful place. But yeah, I mean, it's sad about this whole Miami Beach thing. And I kind of understand the why, in terms of the safety, not because of the COVID, but with crowds that large. I had read too, they've had 1,000 arrests in the last 5 weeks. Here's the crazy one to me. They've seized 86 firearms. So I'm assuming that those weapons would only be confiscated if they weren't legal carries. Or you guys might know a little bit more about that than me.
It depends on how. I mean, there are places that you even with a concealed weapons permit, you still can't carry.
Right.
At a bar, you can't carry, and
casinos,
stuff like that. Yeah. So if these people were getting, I mean, first of all, they got to have a reason to be checking you. So
and you're also not allowed to be drunk with a firearm.
Correct. So that goes on with the.
So if you're drunk and disorderly in our concealed carry, you just broke the law.
Sure.
So maybe that's why they were seized. I don't know, but my guess is they probably weren't concealed. They weren't CCW. They're not concealed carry holders.
So having been to spring break in Daytona in its heyday, I can tell you that arresting spring breakers is just part of it. That's part of the game.
Right. It's almost like a rite of passage.
That's what I was just going to say. If you go to spring break and don't get arrested, it's almost like you failed. I didn't get arrested, by the way, so maybe I guess I didn't do it. Right?
Did you guys see the video of the kid in Clearwater who eluded the police and ran out of the car?
No.
So on Clearwater Beach, there was a young man who was in the back of a police car. It was an Explorer. They were on the beach. There's a crowd around. We don't know exactly what he was arrested for, or at least detained for originally. It was probably something stupid, drunk and disorderly, urinating in public, something silly, right? Well, his friends that are in the crowd, or at least what we think are his friends, another kid, as the policemen are distracted by the crowd and going around to the vehicle, open the back door of the car, and the kid gets out and just bolts. Handcuffed behind his back. Now, talk about how fast I can run. This kid was booking, and of course the crowd goes with him. Well, the idiots, they've all got their phones out. They're all the videos running, so they were easily able to find the kids that opened the door for him. They're all arrested now. They turned it probably a fine,
misdemeanor fine,
right, a situation that would have resulted in a fine into now you're really going to
listen.
have
there's
some
just
problems.
Some people in this world who can't get out of their own way,
right?
And that guy is one of them.
Well, I am certain. Now, I don't have any evidence whatsoever, but using my analytical brain, I am certain this was an alcohol-related incident for all involved.
You think?
Yeah, that's your acuity.
That is my spring break acuity. My spring break acumen.
All right, so switching it up a little bit. Right now, we have the NCAA March Madness tournament going on.
How's your bracket?
I love this time of the year. I haven't watched too many games yet. We've had a busy weekend. But I think part of just the different. I think it's one of those things COVID kind of got for me. I don't know. Haven't really followed college basketball as much as I normally do. Never ever. We joke about it all the time. Never ever follow the NBA, but I will follow college basketball, and I love this tournament. There is something about like a single elimination player go home tournament, and this is the best one that there is. And it hasn't been without some drama like it always has. The first notable one, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, essentially had to forfeit, or I don't know what they actually called it, but
DNF did not finish.
Yeah, they did not have enough healthy players because of COVID to play their first game, and so that was ruled a no contest. Here's the crazy thing. I read a little bit on that. I feel horrible for these guys because of the work that they had to do to even get in this tournament. And a year ago, this tournament was canceled.
Right.
And the championship game for their conference, which had they won, would have propelled them into the tournament. It got canceled literally 3 minutes before tip-off.
Oh.
So their 2020 season gets derailed because of COVID. And now their 2021 season gets derailed because of COVID. And apparently the team didn't break any of the protocol rules. Like nobody stepped out. Like they were complete straight and narrow, but still for whatever reason,
something happened. Somebody got it.
Couldn't put a team on the floor.
That is disappointing because you these guys do work hard. They it's not all luck and happenstance that gets them to this tournament. There's a lot of talent and years of training that get you here. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. About the upsets, one of the greatest things about this tournament is that there are going to be some crazy upsets. And when I was making my picks, I'm sitting there going, like, I feel like I need to pick an upset, but I have no idea who it's going to be.
Where it's at.
And
you never know where it's at.
You never. And no matter how many times I was going to look at this chart, I was not going to pick Oral Roberts to advance.
So what you're saying is you didn't have Oral Roberts over OSU.
I did not. I will say this, though. My Final Four is still intact. I don't know about everybody else, but my Final Four is still intact.
Oral Roberts has tipped off already against Florida. I think they started at 7:30 or 7:45. But I'll tell you what, Ohio State, which was a number 2 seed, losing to Oral Roberts certainly opens things up for the Florida Gators, who are kind of like a mid-tier team, But this could provide them a. Go ahead, Pierre.
No, I was going to say they didn't finish well in the SEC tournament. I think Alabama ended up winning that.
Yep.
So I mean, they weren't expected to go far, but like you just said, this kind of opens the path. I had Ohio State in my Final Four, so there you go.
Me too. Oh wow, me too. I had Ohio State in my Final Four too. Yeah,
I had them going up against Baylor.
My Final Four is now down to a Final 2.
I've got 3. I'm still 3 in there.
So the other team that I had in my Final Four was Illinois, who lost today to Loyola of Chicago. That was earlier today. And by the way, that game wasn't even close.
Where is it? I'm looking for Illinois on my bracket.
I had them in my Final Four. And then, listen, I have to give this headline. This is proof that Jesus is still in the miracle business. Okay? Because Abilene Christian, a number 14 seed, knocks off Texas, a number 3 seed. So I want you to look at these upsets. Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
Loyola of Chicago, Catholic school, and Abilene Christian. Jesus is still in the miracle business.
Hey, let's not forget what the Liberty football team was able to do this season as well.
Well, Liberty's in this tournament, right? Or they were.
They got beat.
They did get beat.
They get
all right.
beat. Yeah.
Man, if Notre Dame had been in, can you imagine they would have gone all the way, maybe?
Did you say Illinois?
Yeah, I said Illinois. Yeah, they got beat today by a Loyola of Chicago. Yeah.
I cannot find them in my bracket at all.
2021 bracket?
I hope so.
Wow.
Hey, so y'all want to talk? Who do you have for the national championship? Because this is going to be over by next week. So,
I have Gonzaga.
Yeah, I have Gonzaga beating Baylor in the finals.
Okay, so I have Baylor beating Iowa in the final.
Iowa.
Yep. Right here, you saw Iowa's going to take down Michigan, and then they're going to be in the final 2 with Baylor.
My bad.
Wow.
I've only got half a bracket. That's where I was messing. I was only looking at the South.
Oh wow, you didn't scroll far enough down on the page, Pooh Bear.
That's it. I'm a failure at the computer.
Wow. Yeah, so you're definitely not going to win the bracket challenge.
No, I'm in third place right now.
Oh, you did fill it in, right? So
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I believe currently the Chief is winning. So Chief, if things play out, per the rules, you get an opportunity to guest spot on this show. So why don't you do it by why don't you just do it by yourself? You can just guess.
I'm gonna call guest of my choice for this one if I win.
We'll probably have to go to the first person, the highest ranking person in the bracket that is not a show member.
I guess I kind of like Chief's idea there of guest of your choice.
Okay. All right.
But I don't think it's over yet. I'm having to look up my bracket because I don't remember who my other team was that I had.
There's a lot of red in my Midwest. I'm looking at this. It's real bad. Oh man, but it has been fun. I've been able to watch a few of the games, at least the portions of them. I think this reason, or this year, the reason it may feel so odd is because normally it starts on a Thursday. You still have that Thursday, Friday, kind of a workday thing, to where you kind of pick up little nuggets. Maybe it's on the radio while you're doing some work, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to watch television while you're working. That kind of has this the mystique that goes along with it. The nostalgia of doing that while you're working, and that it didn't happen. So they started on a Friday, and it didn't happen until I think Friday afternoon.
Well, and the difference this year is because all the games for the whole tournament are being played in Indianapolis,
right?
So they don't need to space out the games as much because of no travel.
Right.
So
I think that gives I think that's given it the different feel, maybe,
Yeah. So, another funny story this week, Pooh Bear, you brought it to our attention. So the United States Air Force has a practice drone wash up on Boynton Beach.
Another Florida story. Yeah, this is not a small drone like your consumer, like I have. I've got a consumer 4-propeller doodad. This thing is a rather large.
It looks like
drone.
A missile.
It does look like a missile, very much so. It's painted orange, bright orange. So these are training drones that the Air Force uses. They launch these things and they use apparently live fire from their F-16s, F-22s, A-10s, whatever airplanes to shoot these things down. Gives the pilot some real world live action that doesn't involve hurting another human. I'm not sure how they secure that with the ammunition, stray fires, things like that, how that works out, or the drone crashing. But typically the story I read said that the drone that gets shot down is usually picked up by a boat and able to rescue it. But this one got away somehow. They missed it. Not sure why they don't have GPS on these things or whatnot. But my first thought was, kind of going back to a few episodes ago for us, was when we were talking about UFOs. So what if these are just partial UFOs for other people to see? That the military, the Air Force is not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, that was one of ours. We shot it down. Don't worry about it," because you never really saw it, right? Somebody living in a trailer park saying, "Hey, I saw something in the sky." Yeah, we're not going to answer that. We'll let your fascination run wild. It probably turns out to be something like this. Just a thought. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely off base. But
here's what was crazy to me is apparently they do this live training with live fire over the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. So I don't know. We live on the Gulf of Mexico. Hopefully they're doing that in some places that don't involve like oil drills.
Right.
Since we know that there's some out there. And also, like, what happens if you're just like randomly in your boat out there one day?
Right. That's what I'm saying about the stray fire. How do you make that? I'm sure they do. I'm not saying that the United States Air Force
somehow they clear the area, I'm sure, but like,
right.
Anyway, so this thing gets shot down in the Gulf of Mexico. For whatever reason, they couldn't find it. Rough seas. I'm sure there's a number of reasons that would prevent them from recovering this drone, right? This thing goes all the way around the southern tip of Florida and back up the Atlantic coast and beaches in Boynton Beach. If you're not familiar with that area, it's right above Boca Raton.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the next major.
It's the Gulf Stream,
like Boca Del Rey, Boynton, right? So yeah, it would have got caught in the Gulf Stream. It must have taken a couple of months for this thing to make that trip.
I assume so.
But yeah, to your point, why not have some sort of I mean, they probably spent $1 million on the thing. Why not put GPS in it?
I suspect there is GPS and it got shot. I mean, that's what they were doing. They are shooting it.
It may have been shot, or maybe when it landed, it got wet and had deactivated it. Who knows? But yeah, that would have been a pretty cool sight as a spring breaker. Chilling out on the beach. Hey, look at this drone.
Yeah, listen, this is like the day of I have an office there. So we have an office in Boynton Beach, and I don't think
we're playing a new game next week. Where does Brian not have an office?
Well, listen, I'd love to put that out there because if I don't have an office there, I want an office there. So that that could help things out for me. So,
and you're welcome.
Yeah, you don't spring break in Boynton Beach, by the way.
No, that's not for spring break now.
No. So, well, gentlemen, we're about out of time. Anything you guys want to add?
We need to come up with a GoFundMe for TSG's internet.
Wow. That coming from the guy that was delayed all last week.
The reason we're coming
it wasn't my internet. That was Wyndham Vacation Club internet.
Listen, the reason we're coming up a little short on the showtime here is because we had a whole segment that TSG was supposed to lead, and without him, we don't got it.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little hockey. The one advantage TSG does have over us right now is the fact that he can watch the Lightning games with his cable service. B-Love and myself cannot. The Chief just refuses to watch hockey. So we can it's on the list with the NBA. No, he has the cable service that will provide the hockey games. So Chief and TSG are the only ones that can watch it. I love to watch it. I've been watching what I can on my phone or through another internet source that I won't claim on national YouTube. Exactly. So, but that's not all the time. So it's difficult for me to see, but I've been following along. So the Lightning are in first place. I think they beat the Panthers again to secure that.
They did
just today. So that kind of secures their first place spot. So it's been a little difficult for Lightning fans to follow along, but they are doing well.
Yeah. It's they definitely look like they're making a run back at it. So,
I don't think they'll have any problem.
And doing it without Kucherov.
Yeah, exactly. He should be ready for the playoffs. They'll have a decision to make. What line to put him on once he comes back. That'll be kind of difficult to whose chemistry you're gonna mess with to bring him back for your playoff roster. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt they're gonna make the playoffs. But that is the toughest trophy to win. And once you enter the Stanley Cup playoffs, anything can happen.
All bets are off. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All bets.
Yes,
are
sir.
Off.
So. All right, so yeah, we got lined up. We got our 1-year anniversary show next week. This should be fun. Are we going to have some special guests? Should we bring on some special guests?
We should. We should probably have a conversation about what we want the 1-year anniversary show to be.
Yeah. Well, I think we can go over some of our favorite parts of the year. What was maybe our favorite show specifically? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll have a meeting later this week. Big TME man event meeting.
Yeah.
But we'll come up with something.
T to the M to the E.
This being the fact that it was our first year, it will not be our last. We are moving forward. Big things to come. So if you want to make sure to be able to view what things to come, go ahead and click the bell button that's just down here to your right. And make sure you subscribe and share this video. Sharing it is the best thing you do right now. Helps us grow our audience. That's what we want to do. If you like our content, I'm sure your friend's going to like it, right? Way to look at it. So that's it from us. That's the end of our first year. We'll be back for a brand new year next week, 7 o'clock on Sunday. Hope you have a great week. Good night, everyone.
Good night.